Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. I am Pastor Nick. This is Marketplace Monday. It's the day after Sunday. It's the beginning of our new work week. I'm just so thankful for everyone who is up this morning, decided to be part of our Marketplace Monday show. On Marketplace Monday, it's about just helping us in the marketplace, just being aware of different things. And we started a new series, I guess 3 weeks ago, I want to call it. And it was called Handling Real Situations at Work with Wisdom. Handling real life situations at work with wisdom. Sometimes, knowing how to handle things at work in a godly way, sometimes knowing how to handle things at work with wisdom can be a little bit of a challenge because you're dealing with people in the world. You're dealing with people that aren't saved. Even when people are saved, dealing with people in general, everybody has a different ideal. Everybody has a different opinion. So you got to kind of always try to operate with wisdom, always think about what the word says, what God's perspective is, and don't allow people, don't allow situations, don't allow circumstances to get you out of the character and the calling of God on your life. Amen. So this week on our again our kind of like mini, I call them mini series that we're doing 4 or 5 weeks on a certain kind of subject. And what we're on right now is again handling real world situations at work, right? Real things that go on at work. How do we handle those with wisdom? That's the series, right? Today, what we want to talk about is why your workplace sometimes feels chaotic. Why your workplace sometimes feels chaotic. When you think about over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about real situations people deal with at work, right? What are some of the real things we talked about 3 weeks ago? We talked about what to do when your boss doesn't follow through. Remember that conversation? When you have a boss that's not following through, not doing what he says, not attending appointments, not giving you the things that he's promised you when it comes to you doing your job. How do you handle that when your boss doesn't follow through? So we covered that one about 3 weeks ago. Then we talked about what to do when you feel disrespected at work. How do you handle that? You don't go get all, you don't get with them. You don't match energy. We talked about that. How do you do that to keep your God-given character and your integrity in place? Then we talked about last week why hard workers sometimes get overlooked. Sometimes you're busting your butt at work. Sometimes you're doing the right thing. Sometimes you're doing everything you're asked to do. And here comes somebody that's really doesn't seem or appear like they're doing that. And they get recognized or they get promoted or they get increased and you didn't. What do you do in that situation? So that was last week. All of those are available at www.ltmorlando.org. Just go to our website, go to our latest messages, and you can see all of them there. Our creative team does a great job of getting them up there, so they're there for you anytime you want to see them. Today, what we're going to talk about is something a lot of people feel every day, right? Why does the workplace feel so chaotic? Why does the workplace always feel so chaotic? Maybe you feel like nobody at work communicates clearly. Maybe you feel like priorities are constantly changing. Maybe you feel like problems constantly repeat themselves, don't seem to get resolved. Everything feels very, very reactive at work, right? And when that happens, after a while, it becomes exhausting. It gets really, really tired. So today what I want to do is I want to help everyone understand why chaos happens in the workplace. Why do these things happen? And also how to keep it from affecting your attitude, how to keep it from affecting your growth. But most of all, how do we keep this from affecting our peace? How do we keep it from affecting our attitude? How do we keep it from affecting our growth? And most of all, how do we keep it from affecting our peace? So point number one, chaos usually starts in the workplace with a lack of character. A lack of clarity. Chaos usually starts in the workplace with a lack of clarity. I keep saying, yeah, I want to say character. I guess it really is character, but anyway, clarity. Most work chaos comes from unclear expectations. That's really the trigger of why all this happens. It's not clear what your expectations and communication is clear. Employees perform better. So sometimes if you feel a lot of chaos at your job, you might want to talk to your boss about some clarity, right? When clarity is missing, frustration increases. Let them know that. When clarity is missing, mistakes take place. They increase, right? And last but not least, stress. A lot of stress comes when you don't have clarity, when there's not clear expectations, a lot of stress comes, right? And then what happens is people begin to react instead of operating in confidence. Okay. So for this one, write this down. Confusion creates chaos, clarity creates confidence. Confusion creates chaos, clarity creates confidence. Somebody put that in the chat. Confusion creates chaos. Clarity creates confidence. How can you use that at home? How can you use that in your marriage? Let's say you have confusion around your finances. You have confusion around financial goals. You have confusion in your marriage about where you guys are going. Well, that's going to create chaos. It's going to create arguments. It's going to create problems, right? But when you get clarity, when you get goals, when you get vision defined, when your marriage has a defined vision of what you're trying to accomplish, now that creates confidence between mom and dad. And then that confidence trickles down. So all this stuff goes both ways. It can go in marriage, it can go in your relationship with your children, it can go in your ministry, it can go anywhere. Point number 2 today, write this down. Reactive workplaces exhaust people. Reactive. Some workplaces spend all day, reacting. The workers are always just reacting. Everything becomes an issue. Everything becomes an emergency. Everything is a last minute problem, right? Everything is, I got to interrupt you, a stressful interruption, right? This usually is caused because you have very poor at the job, maybe poor systems, right? Maybe there's been poor planning, not good thought management or thought leadership around what you do on a daily basis. Communication typically is very inconsistent in these kind of companies, right? And when you look at Harvard Business Review, what it says in some of its studies and what they've highlighted is that reactive, right, work environments increase stress and they reduce productivity. So over time, constant chaos wears people out. It wears them down. It wears them out. It puts a lot of stress on them. Nobody wants to work in that environment. That's why it's imperative that you talk to your boss, that you share with them, and you try to be part of the solution, not the problem. Don't go to them complaining. Find one little system that maybe you can help put in place that'll help reduce some of that. Put that one, help them, just go to them, say, hey, boss, we thought about maybe doing this, right? When everything is urgent, people eventually stop caring. When everything is urgent, people stop caring. Okay. Point number 3 for today, don't let the workplace chaos become personal chaos. Most important thing, don't let the workplace chaos become personal. Don't bring that home to your wife. Don't bring that home to your husband. Don't bring that home to your children. This is where wisdom really matters. You may not be able to control the leadership. You may not be able to control the lack of systems. You may not be able to control the environment. But I will tell you what you can control. You can control your attitude. You can control your communication. You can control your organization, your ability to be on time, your ability to follow through. And most of all, you can control your response. You can control your response. Strong people learn how to stay steady even when the environment is not. Let me say that again. Strong people with good character, they know how to stay steady even when the environment is not. So here's the key takeaway. Write this down. You don't have to become chaotic just because the environment is chaotic. Write that down. You don't have to become chaotic just because the environment is chaotic. Okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're getting anything out of this today, if it's helping. I like to know if we're on track with these. It was funny. I had somebody give me a suggestion last night for a show, and it's actually the very next show. They didn't even know it. So we'll talk about that at the end. But last point for today. Sometimes chaos reveals weak leadership. That's just the truth, right? Let's be honest, right? Sometimes ongoing confusion, sometimes ongoing disorder, sometimes lack of systems, all these things point to leadership problems. Not every workplace, ladies and gentlemen, is a healthy workplace. But here's what you do. Instead of becoming bitter, instead of becoming angry, instead of becoming chaotic, instead of taking all of that home to your husband, to your wife, to your family, to your ministry, you need to learn from it. Learn from it. You need to learn to sit back and observe it. Why? So you learn what not to do when you get in leadership. You learn what not to do when you own a company, right? And then most importantly, grow through it. We got to learn to grow through things. We got to we got to learn to stop letting things just negatively affect us. Even when it's not a good thing, man, we got to learn to sit back, like I said, and think about that thing and look at it, right? You got to learn to let it teach you. Again, not what to do, but what not to do. Pastor Poe told me this early in ministry. He said, son, when you're at this church and you're being developed, you're going to learn what to do in ministry and you're going to learn what not to do in ministry. So sometimes you just sit back and you watch. That's why every time we change leaders in a ministry, it should get better. Because the person that's been serving underneath that leader, he's been more on the ground with the people. He should know things to do a little bit better, maybe do a little bit different. Doesn't make the first leader a bad leader. Sometimes that's just what is required. Okay? So here's what I want you to think about this week. If your workplace feels chaotic, if your workplace feels unorganized, if your workplace feels like they don't have it together, what I want you to do is focus on not absorbing the confusion. What do you mean, Pastor? Don't match the emotional energy. Don't give them tit for tat, right? Don't lose your discipline. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to be thoughtful. I want you to stay organized. Write that down. Be thoughtful, right? Stay organized. Don't let the chaos get to you. Be thoughtful. Stay organized. Communicate clearly. Be dependable. Bring calm to the confusion. You be the calm, because calm people stand out loudly in chaotic environments. Let me say that again. Calm people stand out loudly in chaotic environments. Amen. Hey, listen, next week, what we're going to talk about is when is the time right to leave your current job? When is the time right to leave your current job? You know, a lot of people ask me this. It is a real question. You've been in a job for a while. Maybe you feel a little stagnant. Maybe you feel like you're not advancing. That necessarily doesn't mean it's the right time to leave a job. So how do you know when the right time is the right time? So next week, we want to talk about that. Listen, man, I appreciate all of you guys joining every week, being consistent. I'm thankful for you. So I just want you to know that. I love you guys. I do this because I care for you. I do this because I hope, my prayer is that one day you can say, hey, man, I applied this winning in a word principle. And when I applied it, it helped me do this or it helped me do that. The goal to all this is just to try to help us get better. I love you. I love you. I love you. Until we Wednesday with me and Pastor Franny, Pastor Nick saying, enjoy life.